Standing for a moment with your feet in a position to support you well. And as always, the term that we use is feet hip width apart. That, of course, can be measured slightly differently depending on which part of the foot which part of the hip you're referring to. But you want to feel that your feet are actually, feet and legs are supporting your hips, and then your hips can support your shoulders. Weight a little bit forwards, and just a feeling around lower back, hips, buttocks, maybe even in your thighs and your knees, of a sort of releasing, softening feeling, so that you're not actually kind of pulling on the joints, pulling on the muscles, giving this feeling of just slightly overhanging in hips and lower back. The feeling of your weight dropping. Never be in a hurry to come into the postures. So if you're new to this, just recognize that there's always a significant degree of conditioning that needs to take place alongside to allow the changes to be comfortable. And if you're experienced with this, just see this as something that you're moving towards, rather than something that you have to get straight away. And as you bring your attention more to this central part of the body, begin to turn. Just turn a little bit in hips and waist. It's not a big movement there. Feeling how the movement builds up through your back, ribs to your shoulders, and eventually, of course, to your arms. Trying to keep this feeling of your hips dropping back slightly. It's almost like you're sitting on a fence. When we sit on a fence, our hips overhang. The difference is, of course, that when we do this in Tai Chi, we do this without sitting on a fence, what happens is our pelvis will just tuck under. So rather than this feeling of our weight being pulled backwards, which is obviously unsettling, our weight stays focused down into our legs and our feet. Sometimes referred to as sitting, which we let the hips sit. We sit into our legs. We sit into our feet. So one way or another, we find a way of just allowing our weight to drop a little bit. In particular, thinking of our centre of gravity dropping towards the floor, or if you prefer, think in terms of maybe your pelvis, if that's an easier thing to envisage, dropping towards the floor. Rooting down provides the physical foundation for all the movements that we do, gives us the stability that allows us to move more freely, and it allows some of the strain to be taken off, particularly the upper part of our bodies, so shoulders and back, and that too feeds into the flow of the movement. And as always, the effort that we make to be aware of these things, the sense of drawing your attention into your body, helps to just settle your thoughts, bringing your thoughts into the practice, into the present. They will get drawn away. You'll start to think about what you're doing for the rest of the day or what you did yesterday. When you realise that's happened and you've lost that sense of a connection to your body, then just gently bring your attention back. This is an important aspect of Tai Chi, this overlapping, this interrelationship of what we think of as mind, what we think of as body, feeding off each other, supporting each other, and helping us to develop this sense of quietness, calmness that is such a characteristic of the earth. begin to just get a sense for movements in your lower back, the sides of your body. So you feel muscles there beginning to warm up and to expand and contract a little bit more fluidly. We want to give space for movement within our body, particularly within the upper part of the body, so that the third element alongside mind and body is this sense of movement or energy begins to flow more freely in a more balanced, more harmonious way. Once again, there's a sense of mutual support there between all three of those elements. You can't get the sense of the movement, the energy flowing if your body is tight and straining to maintain an upright position. The sort of face of the pull of gravity. It's hard to maintain that posture without a sense of gravity working through your body. At the same time, an awareness of both the physical structure and the flow of the movement helps with that sense of focusing of attention, and so on and so forth. Just be aware of areas that feel a bit tight or stiff, and there may be all sorts of reasons for that. But sometimes we find that as we settle into the postures and the movements, that tightness, that stiffness can just dissolve away. Other times we might want to think a bit more deeply about what the cause is. Why is that shoulder stiff? Initially, just trying to have this intention of a smooth, fluid movement all the way through your body. So sometimes it's better to give more of a point of focus to begin with on those areas of the body that are moving smoothly. You might want to bring in an image of, sometimes we talk about moving through water or even moving like water. Those of you who have done this before, you can draw upon that previous experience, remembering the quality of the movement that you've experienced in the past. Turning your hands palm forwards, raising them up a little bit, no higher than your shoulders. A bit more open across your chest. Sometimes it's easier with this exercise with your arms held in a fixed position to feel how when we turn in the center of the body, our arms respond. And this is important, that really we're very likely to get almost distracted by our arms and our hands. But again, we learn to bring our attention back to our root. We learn to bring our attention back to the center of our body. And that encourages a grounding, a centering in our thoughts, as well as the physical response. And then just let your hands drop down. Now, put one foot in front, turn one foot out, put the other foot forwards. Start to move your weight and feel how your center responds to that by turning. So this brings our legs more actively into movement. Again, just let the movement begin to flow. A steady rhythm will start to build. Your whole body will, over a period of time, begin to resonate quite naturally to that rhythm. And that helps us to build a sense of connection, a sense that our whole body is moving as one unit, rather than this sense that can be all too common of sort of like an arm up here separate from a leg down there, or whatever. And then just change over. It's very easy, particularly for more experienced people, to take these opening exercises a little bit for granted. We just do them, and sometimes we might do them and our thoughts have drifted off, but they really do repay close attention. Okay, they can. So coming back to this hip width stance, this is the basic stance that we use for many of the exercises. Try and have your toes pointing forward, but if they turn out a little bit, that's not a problem. But not too far. Weight coming forward slightly, so more of your weight in the front half of your feet. I would say 70%, 70% of your weight in that front half. Giving you a slight feeling of angling forwards, but then that actually is neutralized once again by this feeling of releasing, of letting go, hips and lower back. So you come back to the upright position, but then let your hips drop down a little bit more and wait until you feel your legs just beginning to push you up. And then sinking down again. So that sense of your root deepening a little bit. And also beginning to see this process of rooting down, not just as a way of becoming more stable, of taking some of the strain off the upper part of the body, but as an essential component in the movement. Because without that downward movement, it will be hard to get the upward movement. It's like if you want to bounce a ball, it has to drop down before you can go up. But gradually we get this rhythm of movement, the body expands and then contracts. Now bringing your arms around, and as your body expands, let the expansion push your elbows out. Turn your hands over, sink your hips, your arms follow down. So you're lifting the ball and then pressing it down in. Don't get distracted by the images or chase after the images, but do try and make use of them. They're an important part of how we bring about this cohesiveness of mind, body, and energy. Our bodies are quite responsive to images if it's the right image. And it's something that we train and cultivate in Tai Chi. So that again, these three elements of mind, body, and energy gradually harmonizing and sort of helping to cultivate each other. Now, turning your hands out, so fingers point away from your body. This is the wild goose. So this exercise with the image of the bird in flight obviously has quite a specific and powerful image. But again, it may be that that image doesn't actually mean much to you. So the images are there to help build the practice. Sometimes it's interesting for us to develop an image, to think about what it means, maybe try and make it work better for us. But what we don't want to do is get so caught up in the imagery that we lose touch with what's happening physically. So if an image is distracting you, it's no longer useful. And then part in the clouds. Not stretching. So gradually getting the sense of your range of movement extending, but always stopping at a point where you feel you could have gone a little bit further. Maintaining that feeling of space for the movement within your body. One more time. And then your hands drop down, and next time you push up, focusing on one side of your body, in the expansion, and then winding your arm around so you're plucking something off a tree. Hold down. Switch sides, push up, rotating your arm, wrapping your fingers around gently, hold down. You may find that this movement works more smoothly on one side than another. That's not a problem, especially to begin with. A lot of those differences, time will smooth out. Trying to feel the extension, not just in your arm, but really right from the sole of your foot up through your leg, your side, and your ribs, like an elastic band extending out and then contracting. One more time. This time, don't go down quite so deeply, but try and maintain this feeling of just sitting back that I described at the beginning. Bring your hands to your sides and then slightly round in front and pushing up, feeling the lengthening through your back. And then let your hands return to the starting point. And then once again lifting, and this time pushing out sideways. And looking for that same sense of elasticity that I mentioned in the last exercise, though there was an elastic band extending out and contracting. We want to try and feel that quality of elasticity working through all the soft tissue of the body as much as possible. Again, this rhythm of expansion, expanding from the center of your body and from the ground, and then contraction. And this time, as you push out sideways, turn just a little bit in the center of your body, noticing how that redirects your arms. And then back to the push out, turn in the opposite direction. Your arms again guided by that, coming back, and then facing the front and check. So it's called pushing in 4 directions. First direction is up, no turning in the center. The middle 2 directions involve the sideways push with your hands, but a turning in your body that redirects them. like you might turn the steering wheel of a car to change the direction. And the final direction is hands going out to the sides and without the turn. Once again, seeing if you can just allow your body to settle into a nice, steady, smooth rhythm. Maybe employing that image of moving through water, moving like water. Realizing that's not just about the fluidity of the movement, but it actually helps us to cultivate this stronger quality in the quality Tai Chi we refer to as internal strength. And then your arms drop down, just feel the weight of your arms hanging from your shoulders. And with the expansion in your body, let that push one arm out until it comes into line with your nose and your navel, the center line of your body, straight down. So again, expansion from the center part of your body, describing a half circle. Then it's time when your hand reaches the top, once again, turning in the center part of the body. So more and more we become aware of the way that that central part of our body guides and shapes the movements. And becomes an important and significant point of focus for us. That center part of the body drops to the ground, it roots down. Changing sides. The center part of the body that gives directions to particularly our arms, but we'll see in a moment that it goes a little bit beyond that. And it's that center part of the body and from there down into the ground that we train ourselves, we learn, bring our attention back to when we're seeking this quality of the stillness, the quietness, the calmness. That again is such a feature of the art, such a benefit of the art. This time, once again, adding the turn, aware of any differences once again between one side of your body and another. And just letting your arms hang down and keeping that focus of attention on the center part of your body. Just gently tilt your pelvis forwards and backwards. Notice what happens from your hips up to your shoulders and your head. So this is a vertical rotation in that center part of your body. And we notice that it actually has a profound effect on our alignment with the pull of gravity. Here, when the pelvis is level, we can stand upright more comfortably. Here, when it goes back, it tends to send our head and shoulders back. Here, when it tilts forwards, it tends to send head and shoulders forwards. So the center of our body has this effect of guiding the body, not only horizontally in the way that we did with the last couple of exercises, but also vertically. And when you come back, so from this position, to this position, notice where the effort is being made. Try not to tighten up in your shoulders or your back, to pull your head back, but rather let gravity itself draw your hips back, and then just let them go back a little bit further, and then away. So gravity will actually help you come upright if you find the right pathway for it through your body. And building on this time, as you come up, your arms come out, and then pushing your hips back, sweeping over, just rowing a boat in the middle of the lake. This is not a forwards bend. Your hips go back, and that sends your head forward, and it also keeps your center of gravity over your legs. If I were to bend forwards like this, I would very soon stumble forwards. But this helps me to remain stable in a slightly more awkward stance than the previous ones that we were using. And it also helps me to come back to that upright position with a lot less strain, tightening in the upper part of my body. So we maintain that sense of spaciousness, the flow of the movement, even though we're angled forwards and then trying to come back upright to draw our head up. Do one more of these. And then let your hands rest palm down, turn horizontally, then push your hips back, swing the hips across, let them drop down again, and turn to the front. This is called polishing the table. Change direction, turn, push back, swing across, come upright. From the back, so you can see my hips, I turn, notice how my hips go back, swing round, come upright. Just allowing your arms to extend out a little bit, feeling the extension in your back. It's gradually becoming a nice smooth movement, circular movement, not straining in your shoulders or your arms. One more time. So now, just again, letting gravity draw your hips back, let your shoulders drop. Trying to feel that you can remain upright without the same sense of straining and struggle. Feeling your legs supporting your body, of course. Feeling that your back supports the front of your body. Try not to pull your belly in or tighten your chest. And hopefully a growing awareness of how your body supports itself from within through the skeleton and surrounding area. Again, allowing for a softening and releasing of all of the soft tissues, and with that, a much more spacious quality within the body that allows for movement. And then just shake it. So this sense of space within the body has an impact on really all or most of the metabolic processes. It's not just about the flow of energy, as we sometimes refer to it, but muscles, when they move, need to expand and contract, and they need space to do that in. We need space for the movement of digestion, of circulation of blood, of breathing. So many of the metabolic processes that are crucial to our well-being actually require movement. And if we're tight and if we're stiff, it's like wearing a shirt that's too tight or shoes that are too tight. The movement becomes much more constricted. So again, we see the connection, the overlap between our physical posture and an awareness of our physical posture and the the actual movement. And the cultivation of all three of these is really a key element in the whole of Tai Chi practice. Okay, so let's just stay with the parallel stance, but maybe have your feet up a little bit wider. And here you can have the feet turned out a little bit. I think that's sometimes easier. And begin to move your weight a little bit from side to side. When we talk about weight transfer in Tai Chi, we often refer to the percentage of the weight in each leg. When I go into this leg, my left leg is on your right, I have 60% of my weight in this leg and 40 in this leg. And when I move across, changes now it's 60-40. So it's not a big movement. That's one of the reasons why I think it's helpful to have your feet wider apart. You can do this in the narrow stance, but it doesn't give you much space for that movement. And it's very easy to sort of find yourself straining. We move from the ground, and this is important. And again, this is something that relates to this idea of the root. When we move from the ground, we're more likely to remain stable. We're more likely to maintain the alignment of our body. Just keep going. Let me demonstrate that. So if I get these books and have them in front of me, and if I want, there's 3 or 4 books there. If I want to move the books, if I simply do this with the top, then it very quickly falls down. If it was a big stack of books, it would have tipped right over. If I can move the lower book, it moves much more easily and maintains the stack much more effectively. And in the same way, when we can move more from the ground in the way that I'm describing here, we're far more likely to maintain good posture, an appropriate posture, and everything that implies. I've been talking about in terms of space for movement and so on, far more likely to remain stable. So an awareness of your feet, positioning of your feet, an awareness of this very subtle quality of the transfer of our weight is important. And an appreciation that, again, we have a rhythm of the movement. We go into one leg, we feel that leg being compressed slightly, and then it pushes it back, it expands, and it pushes us across into the other leg. So the transfer of the weight is, again, a major source of this very dynamic energy that we associate with Tai Chi. Begin to let the center of your body turn, go into your right foot and turn. So mirror my movements, go across into your left and turn. Just for a moment or two, resting in the leg as your body turns. And if you do that, you're more likely to feel this build up of pressure that comes from the compression in your leg. You can start to feel quite a strong sense of pushing from the ground. So once again, this feeling of rooting down isn't just about maintaining a stable posture, important though that is, isn't just about taking some of the strain of carrying the body's weight off the upper part of the body, and again, that's very important. But it's actually the thing that initiates the build-up of the energy, the build-up of the movement from the ground. hope you can begin to see why we put such an emphasis on this idea of rooting down in Tai Chi. Bring your hands out a little bit, just in front of you. Feel how your hands follow the movement. We're going to do an exercise called Parting the Wild Horse's Mane. Go across into your left foot, and as you do, just let your left hand rise up, fingers pointing away from the shoulders. Back into your right, turning, drawing your hand across, and now turn both hands palm in, so you're holding the ball. Move your weight into your left leg and turn to your left. Go into your right leg, and once again, there's the right hand, the lower hand that swings up. The top hand pushes down to your hip, nice and open across your chest, and then coming back, feeling the contraction across your chest, helping to bring your arm across. Turn your hands palming, move across, turn. So, parting the wild horse's mane. A smooth, fluid, sweeping movement. Perhaps I'm thinking back to the motion of the horse, the image of the flowing mane, the flowing tail. That's a quality that you can envisage in the movement. And remember, the mane of the horse, the tail of the horse, are things that are moved by the rest of the body of the horse. They don't have their own independent movement. And to a large extent, that is true of our arms. Obviously, our arms do have a bit of independent movement. They have muscles and joints and so on. But the main energy, the main impetus for the movement comes from this combination of rooting down, transferring your weight, and the guidance through the center of the body. My left arm swings out because I've turned to the left and because I've expanded in the body. Comes back and across because I've moved my weight and because I've turned to the right. I hold the ball, I move across, and the ball is carried across because my weight is moving, because my center is turning. And the same thing here. Now my center turns to the right side of my body expands and back. We say in Tai Chi that the movement is rooted in our feet. And that movement, that energy is transmitted through our legs. It's guided, shaped, directed through the center of our body, that area between hips and waist. And is expressed through our upper body and arms. And this encourages, again, a focus of our attention through the center of our body. Think of the center of your body as being like a telephone exchange, or one of these big sort of places where the internet servers exist. Messages go into the center from our mind and through our nervous system and so on, and get transmitted out to the rest of the body. And if we were to say, touch something here, that information would go back into the center and then would be transmitted to the mind. So again, we have this combination of different elements working together increasingly as one harmonious unit. Moving the weight, turning the center, feeling the expansion in the right side of your body. Moving the weight, turning your center. Hold the ball, move your weight, turn the center. Notice how little I'm directing the arms into your left, turn into the left, expanding through the left side of the body. And so on. Constant process, a constant rhythm in our attention of coming back to our legs coming back to our feet. We get very easily distracted by our arms and our hands, I think, understandably so. Remember, we want an awareness of what's happening in the lower part of our body, an awareness of how we're moving from the ground. And shake out. Think about how many times we lose touch with what's happening in our feet. Or sometimes we say to each other, watch where you're putting your feet. You don't always realise that they're stuck out there, or moving the wrong way, or something like that. Obviously, our feet will always follow on. There's something very natural about that, but we're inevitably more aware of what our hands are doing, most of us, than what our feet are doing. So there's a redressing of the balance there. It's not to say that the arms and hands are unimportant, but it is just making sure that our attention embraces our feet to maintain that smoothness and stability of movement, that sense of moving from the ground. Now, on the parallel stance, imagine parallel lines running through your feet, like tram lines we sometimes call. Turn your left foot out a little bit, again, mirroring my movements. Step forward with your right foot, toes pointing forwards. And once again, just begin to transfer your weight. This time, when you go into the front foot, you'll get something like 60% of your weight in that leg again. But when you go back, maybe a little bit more, maybe 70%. Again, just giving yourself a moment to settle in each leg. Waiting to feel that sense of a push. It can feel almost like you're in the sea, and that moment just before you feel the wave before the wave picks you up, that little bit of a kind of push upwards that you can experience. And that movement directed into what we would refer to as the empty leg, the leg without the weight. So this is different to our more normal mode of moving, which would often involve an angling forwards with our shoulders. That can be a very efficient way of moving because it takes our centre of gravity forwards and actually helps us to move. It's almost like when we walk along, it's a controlled fall. You fall slightly, but your leg swings through and you don't actually hit the ground. Here, we're trying to remain upright. And I sometimes think of this as being the missing element in how we often walk. That I would never advocate this is how we would walk down the road, but it's almost like this is what sits inside that model of angling forwards slightly. Because without this, it's all about leaning forwards, and that can end up potentially with us falling. Chances are we won't fall, but the reason we don't fall is because we're straining in our body to do that. So if we get used to the idea that our hips dropping back help us to keep upright, that's a balance to that tilting forwards. It's like, again, if you're driving a car, your foot just hovering over the brake in case you need to press it down, or if you ride a bike, your fingers on the brake levers. When you go into your back foot this time, gently raise the toes of your front foot. You can turn the foot out. When you go forwards, push your back knee forward so your heel comes up. So more of your weight settling into each foot, maintaining the alignment of your pelvis. So not tilting forwards. Just see if you can bring the empty foot in, plant the foot. If you're going back, it's going to be the ball of the foot that goes down first. If you're stepping forwards, it's the heel and then the ball of the foot. Either way, Noticing where you're putting the foot, where you're putting the foot. Thinking about this hip width stance. Okay, and then have your other foot forwards. Same thing, transferring the weight. So when we move like this, we maintain stability. When we tilt forwards, we risk losing that stability. And we want to try and find a balance between that. If you think about previous exercises, rowing a boat in the middle of the lake and polishing the table, we were able to tilt forwards without losing that stability because our hips were dropping back. Beginning to raise your heel and your toes. Try not to think of balancing. Balance has a different meaning in this context. What we're looking for is to maintain our rooting down, to maintain the alignment of our body, and through that, maintain stability. We don't need to think about sort of trying to balance until and if we lose that sense of stability. Stepping in. Now this time step through, you can either go forwards or backwards, depends where you have the room. I'm going forwards. Notice that my foot comes in, forwards and out to hip width. Just taking time, not rushing this movement. It's quite difficult to do this slow walking. Notice my foot comes in there. Sometimes I might even put my toes down for a moment just to give me a chance to sort of settle properly. Changing direction if you haven't done before. So sometimes you might find that you're able to bring the foot through in a smooth semicircle without having to put the toes down. Other times you might not quite have that stability. So you just let the toes drop, let your body realign itself before you finish the step. Okay, so once again, using that movement of the weight and the turning in the center to create patterns through the upper part. Have your right foot forwards. And first movement, starting in your back foot, go forwards, and as you settle in the front foot, let your arms swing through. This is fisherman caster net. From the side, you'll see most of the time my hands are being pulled by my shoulders. So only as I settle forwards, they swing through. Same thing going back. Not straining to move the arms, just allowing your attention to notice changes in the upper part of your body as well as the lower part, the patterns of expansion and contraction. Remembering that sense of elasticity that leads to the sense of smooth movement. So fisherman caster net. Once again, we can imagine moving through water, helping with this lovely fluid wave-like movements. Then this time when you come forwards as your arms swing through, turn to your right, and that separates your arms and swings them out. Let them drop down as you come back, settle into your back foot, turn to the left in the direction of the front. This is the movement, wind blows the willows. Body trapped in, expand. contracting, expand. And time. Shake it. Left foot forwards. Starting the game with fisherman castanet, nice and soft in your shoulders, loose in your fingers, and just aware of this flow of movement through your arms and out through your fingers. Not straining for that, but allowing that to happen. Thinking perhaps of your body, particularly the upper part of your body, as a sort of conduit for the movement, for the flow. It's not entirely accurate. Your body's more active than that, but we don't want to overdo the movements in the upper part of the body, rather than to allow them to work. And then sinking back and turning to your left, or wind blows the willows again, contracting, expanding. I've just turned my front foot out slightly, and again, combining this with the stepping. So whichever direction you want to go in, I'm going into my front foot. I push my back knee forwards, I bring the foot through, and I step. I plant the foot down. As I go forwards, I drop the hands down. Same thing before. This is called dragonfly skims the water. You can put in, and if it's comfortable for you, you can try and raise the foot, hips dropping back to counteract this feeling of your knee going up. So in the foot, feel your hips dropping back, just gently bringing your foot up, if that's appropriate. If you find that that's not comfortable for one reason or another, leave the foot down. This is dragonfly skims the water. I'm going to change direction. A bit of a turn here. Not too much. If you turn too far, you'll find that you throw your body offline. And then once again, change direction. And one more change. And just come back to the parallel stance and stand. Take a couple of slow, gentle breaths. Shake out. Lovely. So now just open your hands together and with the pads of your fingers tapping gently over your face. And then going over your head and neck, maybe with the palm of your hands. Down to one shoulder, your arm. And on the other side. Round to your back, very light on the lower part of your back. And round your hips. And relax. Light on your belly. And the upper part of your chest. I mentioned this idea of being able to bring our attention back, coming back to this notion of being centered, of being calm, of being rooted, bringing our attention back to the center of our body and our feet. And we see that very clearly in this final exercise. Sink your hips down and then push up. And as you do, once again, like the wild goose, but at the top of the movement, bringing your hands around so you're holding the ball and just drawing in, hips sink, shoulders drop, hands follow, and just this feeling of settling. So again, letting your hands drop down, don't rush, and then start the cycle over. Just focusing on this returning process so that in any given cycle of movement, there always comes a point where we just, as it were, touch base. Easy and gently. Final time, just letting your hands come down. Once again, just stand for a moment in this basic stance. Give your legs a little shake. Thank you very much, everybody. Thanks for watching and joining in. As always, do please contact me if you have any questions and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye for now.